a Japanese theater, and then after the war with the American occupation by American films as well. And here we see just a few from Akira Kurosawa's vast library of films that he made over time. Kurosawa is the most famous Japanese director, probably even today, very well known for his samurai films. Here we have Rashomon, again, with Toshiro Mifune as his leading man for most of his films. Seven Samurai in the upper right-hand corner. We have Throne of Blood on the bottom right, which is actually a Japanese version of Shakespeare's Macbeth. And then Yojimbo, another very famous film. In 1960, John Sturges releases in America The Magnificent Seven. How many of you have seen The Magnificent Seven? Yul Brynner, and the story of 7 bandits, cowboys who ride into a small town and find out it's going to be attacked by Mexican bandits, and they sacrifice themselves to save the town. Based very much on Kurosawa's Seven Samurai film, the story of 7 samurai who band together to save a town from attack. That in turn, or the Magnificent Seven, in turn influenced the much more contemporary anime, Samurai 7. So we see this back and forth of influences that continue on. Yojimbo inspires the Italian director Sergio Leone. His Fistful of Dollars, all those spaghetti westerns that I very fondly remember from the 70s. We have Hidden Fortress, which influences George Lucas in Star Wars. So we see that even though the samurai are a Japanese cultural phenomenon, we see those ideas being shared in the West and then going back. And then, of course, she's too young, but many of you, or some of you are too young for this one, but many of you are familiar with Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill series, where he actually goes to Japan to have the one anime section of the film done by Japanese anime artists. And so we see again this influence of samurai. Now in the 1950s and 60s, this idea of a lone samurai or a ronin samurai, a leaderless samurai, becomes really popular in Japan. It's a time when the Japanese are rebuilding from World War II, and the samurai is one of those images that can help instill national pride and this harkening back in time becomes really important. We see a lot of live action films coming out, again, of samurai, and we start to see samurai in manga becoming really popular. The manga tradition really comes into its own in the years immediately after World War II in Japan, during the American occupation, where we start to see things like Shonen Jump come into being, where you've got serialized stories in pretty low quality newsprint that are circulated. In some cases you can go rent the monthly magazine that has 5 or 6 or 7 stories in it, just installations of stories, and every month you go back for more. So just like those Edo artists who were doing woodblock prints were developing this idea of the samurai, we start to see manga artists doing the same thing. And we start to see this evolution of the samurai. in a lot of cases, they have all those traditional characteristics. They're brave, they're thoughtful, they're caring. But sometimes they get a few little extra elements added in, like magic, like in Bleach. Contemporary music comes into play. So we start to see kind of a continuation and an evolution of the idea of the samurai in popular culture. Rurouni Kenshin is pretty much a straight samurai story. It's set in the 11th year of the Meiji reign, so that's about 1879 in our calendar. And it tells the story of Himura Kenshin, a Rurouni or wandering samurai. He's a reformed assassin and a member of a revolutionary group. But he's changed his tune. He dulls his sword so he can't kill anyone anymore. And he's got this mysterious past that we get little glimpses of through the storyline. He's accompanied on his travels through the countryside by a beautiful swordswoman who he meets and saves in the first episode, and a former mercenary who's his friend, and you can see them here. And in typical anime and manga fashion, when you have these male anime, we have the little boy, the girl usually has some kind of a little furry creature with her, and she does too, and then some kind of thing that runs around in her kimono sleeve. And they go about the countryside righting wrongs and protecting those who can't help themselves. So very much this romanticized idea of what a samurai is. This series, while it's aimed at boys, really has a sense of much more shoujo style in terms of its animation quality. The use of color, the use of flowing lines gives it a much softer appearance than some typical samurai stories. Now, it's actually based on a real-life ronin from the 19th century called Gensai Kawagami. He helped Japanese revolutionaries overthrow a corrupt government in real life. But once the Meiji Emperor got into control, the government executed him because they viewed him as a